Today, I'm going to be talking about my journey in sales and what I learned as a DM setter and what I'm learning as a closer. So, when I was young, actually, my sales journey started when I was very young. My whole family, especially the people on my mom's side, have done sales, so very thick sales background. And my parents, while they were young adults, they did door to door sales, cold ordering. And so when I was young, that's the skill that they taught me in order to make money for summer camp. So we would have to make like $400. And so me and my brother, we would go door to door selling books. So we sold religious books and health books. So devotionals, history books, and prophecy books, but then also like cookbooks and a book called Habits That Heal. Actually, a really good book. Teaches you a lot of habits that heal so you don't get cancer and diabetes and heart disease and all these things. So I sold those starting at the age of 8, roughly. And that's where my sales journey began. And so when I reached the age of 15 and 16, I joined a summer program. So doing this door to door thing 8 hours a day for a whole summer. And I did that twice. So 15 and 16. And then when I was 17, I did a summer camp. So I was actually working at the summer camp this time. Um, So yeah, that's where my journey began. And I was selling, right, like spiritual books. So you can imagine nobody was sitting in their home except for a few thinking, gee, I really wish someone would come to me with these books that aren't my religion, that I don't actually think I need. And so you can imagine you're selling to those kinds of people. And so you just knock on their door, and a lot of them will be like, dude, who are you? Why are you even here? Like, they would cuss at you. They might, like, you never know what you get. Door slammed in your face all the time. And so I learned a lot of how to handle rejection. That was a really good skill that I learned. It helped me become a lot more fearless. I was a very, very shy girl, like really shy. I didn't like talking to people. So I got into door to door sales and talked to so many people that like I'm not afraid to talk to strangers anymore at all. Like it's like totally normal. And so that was a huge skill that I learned. And to be honest, the skills that I learned in sales there, like they didn't teach us really advanced skills. It was kind of the basics to get you by. So just how to knock on the door, like basically any basics that you can imagine. We had a script. We would just say the script and just go to the next door. And they would give us some tactics here and there, but they weren't like advanced trainers or anything. And so I actually didn't think of my door-to-door sales as something that I could personally learn and invest in. Like I didn't actually think of that. I just thought, well, they taught me all I know, I'm just going to try. And so I kind of regret that. Like I could have done there's a girl, her name is Shelby. I see her on Instagram. She sold pesticides door to door and she made so much money. I could have done that if I had just thought through every door and been like, maybe I can watch videos on how to do this better or like learn from someone else who's done door to door sales. Like I could have done that, but I didn't. But it still taught me a lot and gave me a lot better social skills. Better. We'll get into that. Um, but I was the top salesperson in the first summer that I did. So I sold the most. I made 7K doing that door to door in 2 summers, and that's 50% commission. So I made 14K that summer. Same the next summer, although there was one girl who did better than me in the second summer. But just to give you a picture, if you've never done door to door sales, you have all the rejection, people who don't even like they never wanted you to be there, obviously. And you're walking in the heat most of the time because it's in the summer, and so you get really hot. And there were times when I would pour water on my head. You're walking for like 8 hours straight, so your feet hurt. Like it's very taxing physically, but then emotionally because you're getting all the objections. And nobody ever taught me objection handling really, or like how to not get objections, or how to frame yourself so that they think you're a professional. Like I didn't learn any of that. I just kind of winged it on these. So it was really interesting, good experience, and it gave me a lot of grit for rejection. And so that's never really a problem that I have, which I appreciate. And so that was where my sales journey began. Then, when I graduated high school, I spent 6 months trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career. And my primary career path actually was to join the Air Force to become a dog handler. So, since I was little, I always wanted to work for the SPCA. I always wanted to work with animal control or something like that because I loved animals. I grew up on a farm, so I was always handling chickens and dogs and sheep, and so I loved it. I loved all the little critters and all the little animals and horses and stuff like that. So that's what I wanted to do. And the one thing that I didn't like about joining the Air Force and being in the military was that they control you for 4 years. So I did not like that. That was the main thing that held me back. Otherwise, I really liked that it pushes you as a person. Like, you can't just be in the military and be a loser. Like, okay, there's definitely people that are like that. But for me, I knew that it would push me to be better rather than worse. Like, I would want to be better than everybody there in that field compared to like if I just worked at McDonald's, that's totally different. And so in my head, that's what I wanted to do. And I really liked the idea of being in such a high level, high stakes, like rank, like you can climb the ranks in the military and prove yourself. Like I loved that. And I also knew that a bunch of the people that join are young people who are also motivated. And just for context, the place that I live, all my best friends have moved away to other states. So I actually only know two people in my area that I can hang out with that are my friends and that are kind of my age, kind of. That's a kind of a stretch too, and they're also not women. And so one of them is actually. But what I can say is that I actually don't know anybody here besides my brother who are super motivated and driven and like want to accomplish a lot in life. And so I joined in that 6 month period, I joined a running group hoping to find girls my age who were into running because I really liked running. And all I found was elderly women, or not elderly, but like women in their 50s who realized that if they weren't active, they were going to lose their health. And so they just started running. And I didn't aspire to be any of them. So I was like, I don't really like this. I can just run on my own. I don't want to be like running at your pace. So I left that group and I tried to do like Bumble to find women who are my age in my area who are motivated. But no, did not succeed there at all. Definitely not. Definitely not. Found the opposite. And so I figured the Air Force must be the best route to take. But then I stumbled upon high ticket sales. And with the context that I just gave you about door to door sales, you can imagine how appealing high ticket sales is. The ticket price is way more. You're working from home. You're sitting on a chair, not like breaking your back and sweating. You can smell good. You learn really good communication skills. It's not just 5 minutes and then the door closes and you go on to the next. It's a whole hour that you have this conversation with this person. And you actually help them because they already wanted this product or service or education. So when I saw that, I was like, dang, that looks juicy. And so come September of last year, I started looking into like basically communities and I found the objection box and I got a 2 week free trial there and I started to get to know people and seeing, oh wow, like these people are on like a pretty big level. These people talk about commissions on a monthly basis. Like, how much did you make this month? And that blew my mind because I'd only ever been exposed to people who talked about yearly paychecks. So, like, how much do you make in a year? Oh, I make 60K. And then I was hearing these people talking about how they made 20K in a month. And I'm like, what? That's a thing? 20K in a month? Oh my gosh. And so, you know, 3 months of that and you're making 60K. And at that point, I hadn't even heard of like people making 100K per month. Like, imagine that. And so I immediately saw that the standard was higher, but then I also saw people my age who were in the space. And so I immediately liked that and I immediately connected with that and I was like, "Yes, let's go." So I joined the objection box for 2 weeks on a free trial, and then I got one-on-one coaching with Kieran. So I actually canvassed or colportered, did door-to-door knocking in order to save up money to join to get that coaching from him, which was $1,000. And I was like really, really broke then. And so I saved up for it and then got the training. And with Kieran, the main thing that I learned with him, ironically enough, and this might sound pretty stupid, but was patience. And the reason why I say that it might sound stupid is because it only took me a week to get my first role, and I was impatient for that. So it was like day 6, and I was like freaking out and texting Kieran, like, what am I gonna do? Oh my gosh. And he's like, Mega, be patient. It's only been less than a week. And I was like, okay, fine, fine, okay. And so then, 2 days later, I get my first offer, which was awesome. And so through that, he taught me, like, looking at him, I just saw a different level. I was like, huh. Because when I would get on these Zoom calls for my coaching, like, I would be wearing a hoodie, no lighting at all, bad audio. I was in my kitchen with tiles, so the audio is like going like, the sound reflects off of everything. Sounded terrible. And then like I'd be like slouched in my chair, uh, didn't know how to talk or have a conversation or sound confident, like super stumbling over my words, things like that. I also didn't record any of them because I didn't know how important that would be in the future. So that's where I started. That's how bad it was. And I learned a lot from him just seeing the level that he was at. So I slowly I was like, oh, Kieran has a light in front of him. Maybe I should get a light. And so I got a light. And I was like, oh, Kieran has good posture. Maybe I should not be slouched down in my chair. So just I would see what he was doing and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna do that too. And so I got onto my first offer. It was honestly a good offer. Like the people were good, like nice, like they were friendly people, seemed like good people, but uh the owner of the business, he was the one taking the calls and he didn't have like a really good close rate. But I also only booked 5 and I only worked for them for like a month. And so it was pretty like I didn't do like the best job because I was still figuring it out. But their system wasn't super good either, so I never aspired to be any of them. Also, the offer was helping men who have failed to find women and to be attractive. Basically, it helped them with that problem. And so a lot of my conversations in the DMs would go kind of weird, kind of sexual. So it wasn't something that I was like really aspiring to be like. I didn't really want to be like those people. So then at the end of my training, Kieran referred me to work with Stefan Misnikovic and Valentin Younger. And I thought, ooh, okay, other offer. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I shouldn't because I was still doing this other offer. And so I thought, like, is it smart to have 2 offers at once? So I actually didn't super want to be on the second offer with Valentin or Stefan. But then I did hear also that Valentin was like a pretty high level player. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. And so I actually went on the interview with a pretty meh attitude because I thought if I get it, great. If I don't, great. So it was pretty balanced. And thinking about it now, I'm glad that I had that mindset because I think that might have played a role. Potentially, I actually don't know. Might have played a role though because I was detached. But also, I think it's crazy that I had no idea the opportunity and the value that I had right in front of me. Realistically, I should have been crawling like really really wanting that because I can't imagine if I stayed on the other offer. Like I would definitely have learned a lot, but what this offer did for me was it showed me high level players, people that I want to be like, that I aspire to be, both in Valentine and in Stefan. And so this is where we go into the juice of what I learned as a DM setter. And so what that looks like is, well, first, the first month of me doing DM setting for them, I was on school. So I was actually mind blown. Like school, you have no restrictions. The first offer I did was on Instagram, so I had like all the restrictions of how many people I can text in a day. But with school, you can just spam everybody. So I texted like 250 people, and then I had 99 notifications, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." But then I somehow missed the concept of what DM setting really is, where you send a link to the person and they book a call. And so what I was doing was I was just sending them through the 5 day challenge that we had and not actually booking them. So the commissions that I had for my first month of DM setting were actually like I wasn't supposed to have those commissions. And I also sucked at what I was doing. And I was traveling all of December. And so, I was kind of out of tune with my real skill level. So I thought I was like doing good. But then in January, I had a real look at where I was in my DM setting, and I thought, okay, so all last month I did it all wrong. So I actually have no idea what I'm doing as a DM setter. And so I recalibrated and I thought, okay. And then I looked and I saw like it started to click for me that I was working with Valentin Younger and Stefan Masnikovic and other people on the team. And I thought, whoa, what am I doing? Oh my gosh. I got to get myself together. And so it just clicked for me that I'm with these people and like there's so much to learn. Like I got to catch up. And so like my pants caught on fire, and January I just was trying to figure out like how to control myself, if that makes sense. So how to make myself do what I need to do. And that meant consistency was the hugest, most big key to like running every day, going to the gym every day, but then also doing the DMs every day and also doing a good job at the DMs every day, which meant eating good every day. So I wouldn't get bogged down every day. And, you know, that took up a lot of energy. And then I also was doing, uh, was tutoring for, to make money. And so I had to let that go because it was taking up like half my day each day. And it's funny because that was a lot of energy for me. And you can just see like how far I've come since then. And so the first thing that I learned with working with Valentine and Stefan as a DM setter was that I can think for myself. I'll give you some context for why that's something that I learned. Um, in the start, like just as a person, I was always very insecure about my knowledge in things. So I've always known people that have like a specific niche that they know a lot about. So like my brother, he's really good at computers because he's been a gamer and things like that. And then like I have a friend who's really good at uh like geography. Like everybody that I knew like had a thing. I never had a thing really that I knew a bunch about. Like I had things like I play piano, that was like my thing, or like I'm an artist and that was my thing, but they were more like skills that I could do and not like something that I could talk about. And so when it came to this, I was also very just insecure about my own abilities, and so I would always ask them questions about everything. And they say that there's no such thing as a stupid question, but I actually disagree with that in the sense that there's no such thing as a stupid question if you genuinely don't know, or you genuinely feel that hearing someone else's opinion on it might be more beneficial than trusting your own opinion on it. Um, so I would ask them questions on these little minute things because I was insecure and because I wanted their approval or affirmation, or like I wanted to hear that I was doing it right and I wasn't going to mess anything up. So I was just insecure about it. So ultimately, I started to feel their energy and I was like, I think that they're kind of annoyed that I'm asking all these questions. Why is that the case? Because they would answer a little bit, but not enough. And so I always felt insecure asking more, which is ironic, but actually played in my favor because it made me think, okay, Omega, you could probably figure this out on your own so you don't have to bug them all the time. Like, you could probably figure this out. And so I just looked the next time I had a question, I was like, well, there's ChatGPT. Why not ChatGPT it? So I would ChatGPT it, or I would Google it, or I would literally just think about it and then come up with a solution. So just giving a little extra thought. And it's funny because the reason why I always wanted to ask them was because, for one, it was like I could procrastinate it. Like if I was asking them what to say to this one prospect, like I wouldn't have to answer them yet. But then slowly I was like, well, Omega, you could just probably think about it for a couple minutes, go through the different options, and then come to the best conclusion on your own. And so I started doing that. And shockingly enough, it gave me a sense of like self. Like I can actually solve problems on my own. Like I don't need to constantly be told what to do, which is sales. Like you are your own boss. You're an entrepreneur now. And so having that mindset shift was really key. And I will say, like, there's still times when I do ask questions, probably for the wrong reason sometimes as well, but it's on a different level now. Like, it's not all the like technicalities and like stupid stuff like that. Um, Probably in a year from now, I'm gonna look down on myself here and be like, oh my gosh, Omega, what were you doing? But, but I think it's a good thing to ask questions when you just don't understand or when you're learning from someone who just does know more than you. Like, Valentine knows way more than me, so does Stefan, and they're at the level that I want to be at. And so, if there's actually a question that's very crucial to like my career, like it does make more sense to ask them and hear their thoughts on it rather than to just wing it on my own, right? So, in that sense, I think it's good to ask questions to learn from people and ask the stupid questions. But when you're asking those questions based out of like wanting approval, some people ask questions because they want to sound smart or they want to sound like they're trying to figure it out. Like it can come from ego, and it did for me with some of the questions that I would ask. And it just wasted their time and my time. And like it was just the fact that they didn't give me the validation that I wanted that was actually a really good thing because it made me have to untie from that. Like, oh, like okay, I have to actually like think this through on my own. Like I can't just keep asking them. Like so, kind of a funny thing. I don't think I've ever heard anybody else talk about that specifically, but that is actually a really really big thing that had to happen in my mind for me to level up. And so, even now, even today, there's like questions that I'll want to ask and I'll have to stop myself and I'll be like, Omega, you know the answer to that. Why would you ask that? And it usually has to do with ego or wanting to prove myself in some way. And ultimately, like that's now a different issue that I get to deal with. So that was the first thing that I learned. Um, then secondly, I started to understand through okay, so once I realized that I was bad at DM setting, I joined dmsetting.com and learned from Chris. And I learned a lot there. And like as soon as I heard about dmsetting.com, I was like, okay, let's go. Like I just invested, I just bought, like I was doing the boot camp, and my goal was to get to the top of the leaderboard, which was never my goal before. Never in Omega's life did I think that I was capable of getting to the top of the leaderboard. Because I always thought that like for some reason, like I didn't have enough charisma to be at the top, or that like something always stopped me from imagining that I could do that because I never imagined myself as like an A player or someone at the top. But here I was like, Omega, like, why wouldn't you be at the top? Because I had seen a video from Alex Hormozy where he said that he was always the best student in his programs that he would go to. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be that. I'm going to be the best student. And so that made me look at the top players, which I was always intimidated to talk to the people at the top. And so I'd always, in groups that I'd be in, like in school, I would always talk to the people on my level. But you know what's funny? When you talk to people on your level, you tend to stay at your level. When you talk to people who are above you tend to slowly get better and better and better. And so I wanted to talk to the people at the top. So I did. And turns out that they're also like normal people, but they're just normal people with better habits and bigger mindsets and bigger dreams and goals. And so through that, I also learned what real networking is, which is literally just making friends with people. I always, from the start of my sales career, thought that networking was just like talking to people, like texting them and then just like asking how their journey was in sales and like, you know, something like that. But through the boot camp that I went through, I made friends with people and I was like, oh, like networking is just making friends with people. If you make friends with people, people like to help their friends. People like working with their friends. And so that dot connected for me that it's literally just friendships that you build with people. And the fancy name for that is called networking. And so um I learned that and then the next thing that I started to learn was actually the power and the impact of having a actual role model in your life, like a mentor. So Valentine, specifically sales manager, I would look up to him and I'd be like, holy cow, like I'm not on that level yet. Like I need to be on that level. And in the beginning, since I was so insecure, I'd always feel like, oh my gosh, like I definitely got to get my stuff together. Otherwise, I'm out. Like I had that fear, especially in the beginning. Like I got to get myself to something better. And so that meant like changing my background and my lighting, things like that, like basic things, but then also changing as who I am as a person and the kind of habits that I have. So being more consistent, showing up more consistently, like having better thoughts, better communication skills. Like I saw all these things in Valentine and the team, and I was like, I was inspired to be that. And I was like, if they can do it, like I can definitely do it too. Like I gotta do it. So I did. And so still doing that, by the way. 100% still doing that. Like, definitely am far away from the kind of person that I want to be. But yeah, so it's funny though, because when I was young, up until getting into the sales space, I always heard people talk about like the mentor that they had, but nobody actually emphasized the importance of it, which makes me question if their mentor was actually someone who they really wanted to be, rather than just someone that they asked some questions to. And so my view of like mentorship was always skewed. In fact, I was always pretty skeptical of courses and mentorships because I was always thinking like why don't you just do it on your own? Like why pay so much money for mentorship? Now that's a great question if the mentor isn't someone you want to be or someone you actually want to learn from. But like never have I ever seen someone hold up, how do I say this? Like having a mentor, like someone that you actually look up to and actually want to be changes the game because it's different than just having a role model like Dave Ramsey. Like love Dave Ramsey. I like his philosophy on money in certain aspects, but I don't know him. Like I can't just learn from him. I don't know what he does on a daily basis. Like he definitely doesn't have the aesthetic and the fitness that I want to have. So it's definitely not holistic, but when you have like someone that you can look up to who has their health put together, their communication, their leadership, their emotional intelligence and like interpersonal skills and then their habits and routines and their consistency and their willpower and their drive and their goals and ambitions and energy and state of mind, like everything. When you see that, it's like, holy cow, I need to do way better. And so actually having someone that you can look up to, like that was huge for me and still is. Like that's what actually like caught my pants on fire a little bit and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I got to like definitely lock in a lot harder." That actually leads to another point where the amount of times that I've locked in and then realized that there's another level to locking in, insane. So massive. Like I remember in February I locked in March, I locked in. Like every week, I'll lock in again. And it just means that I see a new level of what locking in truly entails. So, right? Like, you can't just go from who you are right now to Elon Musk. It takes little steps to become that. Elon Musk was also like, he didn't just lock in and become who he is today. He had little steps where he like slowly climbed the ladder to the top. And some people have shorter ladders, bigger ladders. They start off at a different part in the ladder, but ultimately you have like steps that you have to take. And what I never understood was that every time you lock in, it's just going to show you the next level of what locking in truly means. But then you get to there and you realize that that wasn't the true locking in level, and that there's another level and another level, and there's always more, and you never actually know enough. Like, I've had some pretty arrogant moments where I thought I knew, where I thought I figured it out, and then I'm quickly just humbled. There's been times when like I would say something to Valentine and he just had like a whole different perspective on it. And I thought in the beginning, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But then he would say something and I'd be like, okay, so I definitely didn't know that. Okay, yeah, okay. And so then I have to recalibrate. And like in sales, one thing that I've learned is that there's a lot of pills that you get to swallow, like a lot of things where you just humble yourself and take responsibility. And that plays out everywhere, like in my relationships too. Huge. It just, you realize how many things that happen in life are because of you and the kind of person you are and the choices that you make and the habits that you develop. And so, also taking responsibility and like swallowing the pills of the fact that you don't know everything and that you actually need sometimes to have another perspective from someone who's up here who knows more than you. Huge. And so, like, I'm definitely still on that journey of like learning more, and it's epic. And I like it. It's hard, but it's like I would not trade it for anything because already the kind of person that I am today is so much more satisfying than anything else I've ever done. Me today versus me in December, which is only like 6 months ago, makes me so happy to see. And the fact that I'm going to look back at this video in 6 months and think, oh my gosh, Omega, you've grown so much. That makes me happy. And so, yeah, crazy. Another thing, too, is the environment that you surround yourself by. That's another thing that I've learned. Like, you can have big goals and big dreams, but also if you don't have the right environment to support that, it's a lot more difficult. And so, I'll give you one example. Like, a huge part of sales is like the energy that you have. And when I was like 2 or 3 years ago, I used to listen to a lot of pop music and like the sad pop music. So the love life that went wrong, the toxic love, the the really like painful guilt, shame, uh desperate romance. That's what I would listen to because the way that they make the music, like I actually like how it sounds a lot. The lyrics, the lyrics are very insecure and and destructive to having a healthy lifestyle and definitely a healthy relationship. So, the funny thing though is that through listening to this music, I thought that I was just relating with the music. I thought that it was like therapy for me to have music that understands me. But what I was really doing was I was feeding my own energy and making it worse and worse and worse. So my relationships with two of my exes were actually because of, at least in my opinion, because of the music I was listening to. Because I would hear the lyrics. Like there was this one song that I really liked called Overthinking by Jake Scott. And basically he talks about how he overthinks everything. And I loved that song because I was like, "Yeah, that's me, like, I overthink everything." But what's funny about that is when you hear that and you think that about yourself, you make it into an identity. I viewed myself as an overthinker, so me and my best friend would talk about how we overthink everything, and it was funny. But that's not funny, and that's definitely not gonna build a relationship that lasts a long time. And so, a couple years ago, I think it's almost 2 years now, I reached a point where I lost 4 people that I cared about a lot. Like, I basically just messed up in our relationships to the point where they just cut me off, and I was so sad and so hurt and so like, "Wow, how did I do this to myself?" that I thought, "Hmm, I think the reason is because, like, I'm acting in ways that would cause this. Why? Maybe it has to do with my music." And so once I connected those dots that my music was feeding me with that energy, I made a new playlist. I loaded up with country Christian music, Christian rap music, and like hype music, like life is good kind of music. And what's funny is I started waking up every day kind of hyped about life, dreaming a little bit bigger. I'll tell you, 2 years ago, I did not have any dreams. I did not imagine being someone that could be financially wealthy or have really, really good relationships or who would have a career that I'm obsessed with. Like, you know, the song Vacation. Like, I never imagined that I would get that because I didn't give my brain room to imagine it because I was just constantly listening to music. Like, I actually listened to music like all day, and it was all negative music, it was all sad music. So, no duh, I didn't have drive in the morning. No duh, I didn't wake up wanting to have an epic day where I was really productive and forwarded my life to the next level. So once I made that shift, I started to realize that, oh, like life is good. Okay, these are new standards for what I want my relationship to be like. I started to listen to music where the woman in the song was really, really loving her husband or her boyfriend and was complimenting him, which, by the way, I noticed this one thing. A lot of pop music, the men are the ones that suck up to the women, and then the women are the ones that get mad at the guy, like Taylor Swift kind of music, where it's like the women just there's so much anger that women will put into songs, and then so much sadness that men will put into songs. And so hearing women in country music singing about how they actually like the men, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then like I just constantly was having people in my ear, singers, talking about their healthy relationship. And then also just talking about dirt roads and trucks and like how good the country is and their awesome country music. And so I started to think that way. And so my standard for what a good relationship is rose significantly higher. And I already knew what a good relationship would look like, but I really kind of didn't actually. But yeah, listening to positive music changed everything. And then also listening to music where these people have goals, that music led me to other music where like I have an artist who I really like, his name is Fiki, and he talks about like his goals and how he's gonna like push and make things happen, and it's very driven music. And so that gives me ambition to hear people sing about that. And so that also led me to listen to motivational music, like basically motivational speeches with instrumental music in the background that's super epic and that makes you really hyped. And surrounding myself with those thoughts and those people's voices in my ears, that changed the way that I think. And that's ultimately what led me into sales. And then realizing that again when I did the DM setting, that if I even switched from country music to the motivational music, that gives me even better thoughts. And so that was huge for me, realizing how important like the sounds that I put in my ears are. And it's funny because I used to go to bed every night listening to, at least when I couldn't sleep, I would listen to this one uh testimonial from this guy who was atheist and he became a Christian. But it was from a guy who was a serial killer, and he was missing a part of his brain that gives him emotions and like empathy. And so the way he tells his story is very unempathetic and it's just very blunt and straightforward. And I thought that was interesting. And like his voice was soothing too. So I would listen to that when I would go to bed. But he would also describe in kind of a funny way, like the things that he would do to people. And the music in the background was very chill. And so, like, it was just somehow peaceful for me to go to sleep to that. Don't ask me how because I don't understand how I listened to that. Like, the first half was kind of brutal, but then the second half was actually pretty good. But what I didn't realize yet was that that was going into my subconscious brain. And so I'd wake up in the morning kind of like not entirely happy to wake up. And so once I got into sales, I started to think, huh, I should maybe replace that with something more productive. And so I got really good sales recordings from like Valentine or other people or like podcasts or Alex Ramosi or anything like that. I just go to sleep listening to that because then over time, a sales call, it starts to get embedded into your brain if you listen to it enough. Like I started to with that other podcast that I would listen to, the one with the serial killer, like I knew what the next words were and what next tune was going to come. Like I almost had it memorized. And so that's only because I had listened to it in my subconscious over and over and over. Like it was just there while I was sleeping. And so while you're sleeping, your brain is also absorbing stuff too. So by switching that with like productive audio, so sales calls, that already gives me an upper hand and I can already feel little differences here and there. And it's not something that's going to revolutionize myself overnight. It takes a lot of time, but also it's better than going to bed and just thinking negative thoughts. Like that makes no sense why you would do that. And then you also wake up in the morning with more motivation and more knowledge. So, win-win. So, those were some of the biggest things that I learned that I've been learning in DM setting and sales. And now I'm just really excited to go even further, like the next steps. Like I don't even know what the next steps are going to be per se. Like I don't know the mindset shifts that I'm going to have, but I do know that all these mindset shifts that I'm going to have are going to lead to way better outcomes. And so by the end of this year and next year, I definitely will have changed my views on like finances and myself and other people, communication, my own habits. Like there's so much to learn and so many areas to level up on. And so I'm just excited for that. And I think the biggest advice that I would give to new DM setters, honestly, is just to start. Like, I've talked to too many DM setters that are like picky about what they get on, and I'm like, dude, just get on something. Like, if you just get on something and start to build momentum, it just carries into other things. You can't expect yourself to get on a really good offer if you don't get on a really trashy one first. Like, you need to gain experience. And so that's That's what I would say. And then secondly, everything is a reflection of you and the kind of person you are. Everything that happens on those conversations. Also, what's interesting is that I think we all intuitively know what it really takes to be successful. And I still haven't cracked the code on this on why we don't just do it, but I know that when I was DMing as Stefan and doing the DMs for him, like I would talk like him. And it was completely different than the way that I talk myself. But I basically became him and imagined how he would talk. And I just talked that way. And then when I was done, I would go back to my phone and I would talk to my friends, but I would talk to them how I would. And so it was interesting because it wasn't like someone taught me that. I just had a perception. I was like, okay, if I was really successful, like how would I speak? And so I did that. And there's so many areas in life where I think people actually know what they need to do, and it's just about doing it that's the problem. And all based off of fear, right? Like, I think the thing that would stop me from texting my friends that way is one, it could be a little bit weird, but for two, that could be fear too. And fear that there's incongruency between me as a person and the way that I'm texting. Like, I feel like I hadn't deserved to speak like that because in order to speak like Stefan, I have to take on his persona and I can just vouch behind him, right? So completely different. And nonetheless, I think people actually know what they need to do most of the time. Some people genuinely don't. But I think a lot of people just, including myself, that's why I'm saying this, is like we know what we need to do, but we just don't do it. And sometimes that means learning, like, right, like you can't just know how to do sales sometimes, like you actually need to be taught those things. Like that's why I'm being taught how to do sales, how to have a call and actually become the right kind of person. But it's interesting because I think we also know what the right kind of person would be. And it's just being taught how to become that. It's like the how sometimes. It's tricky. It's tricky. But yeah. The main thing that I would take away from all this though is that before you go and ask the questions, just see if you can figure it out yourself. Because yes, it's good to ask questions. It's great to ask questions. But if you could figure it out yourself, imagine how much more empowering that is. And then if it works, great. If it doesn't, shoot. If it is a really, really big thing though, like obviously get advice and like I wouldn't just go into sales and then be like, "Oh yeah, I could figure out the whole thing on my own." No. I'm not going to do that because that would waste so much time. But there are little things where it's like I could figure that out on my own. Like I don't need to ask that question. Like I don't need to like just literally stop, pause and think about it. And yeah. The whole reason why I made this video is because I have a friend through my network who she's a content creator and I was telling her about my goals and how I eventually want to be a content creator, mostly just because I want to record my journey. And she told me, she's like, well, like, why aren't you just doing that? And I was like, well, because, and then I started to say some excuses and I caught myself and I was like, oh, I'm giving excuses. Shoot. Like, hmm. And so that's why I'm making this video because like, there's no reason why I can't. Like, zero. And so I just want to document my journey so that in a year I can look back at myself and be like, whoa, I've grown so much. And if you look at my last YouTube video, for a fact I've grown since that. So that's only 6 months ago. So next 6 months, I'm excited for that. And I hope whoever's watching will have learned something valuable and be able to take it, run with it, and execute on it, take action, make things happen, grow in your career, be ambitious, surround yourself with the right people, learn from the right people. Don't let yourself slack off. If you do slack off, like immediately go after it. Also, a huge thing that I don't know if I already said this, but yeah, setting up your environment the right way is huge, right? Like if you make all your food at the beginning of the week, at least for me, like I don't have to make it. So if I do feel lazy, like all I do is take my chia pudding out of the fridge and I eat it. Or, whatever my meal is that's planned. It's just planned, it's ready to go. Boom. If I just focus on putting my shoes on in the morning, then it becomes inevitable that I go on a run. If I just step outside, like, okay, now I just have to run. Like, easy. If I just grab my keys, the next thing is just walk to my car, then just turn the car on, and then you just go to the gym. It's like, if you think of it in these small cues and patterns, it just becomes so much easier to do the things that you need to do in order to be the kind of person that you want to be rather than just like always focusing on like, oh, I gotta go to the gym, oh, I gotta go on a run today. It's more like, oh, let me just put my shoes on, oh, let me just grab my keys, oh, like let me just think of like the first cue. And so that's another thing, basically programming your lifestyle so that it's super easy. My current focus on programming myself is tuned into training myself. So right, like the things that I've programmed are reading and like call reviews, but other than that, it's very difficult for me so far to get myself to a point where it's just really simple for me to just go in and learn what I need to learn. in sales because I get overwhelmed because there's all the fa facets of sales and all the different things that I can learn, and I get distracted with one thing or another. And so that's the skill that I'm honing in on now is how do I focus myself into like the one thing that I need to work on, get that down, go to the next thing, like almost like building your own curriculum in a sense. But yeah, and also another thing too that I was gonna say is the power of journaling. I learned that. I used to journal a lot when I was young, and that's when I saw the most growth in myself as a person. And that's when I also figured out that music had a huge part to play in the kind of energy and the thoughts that I would think. And I stopped journaling, and only, I'll be completely honest with you, only this week did I truly see what I'm missing out on because I started to look and I saw Valentine and I see Stefan and I think like all the successful people that I know, they all have self-awareness. They've they've taken the time to master themselves, learn about themselves, internal mastery, like processing through, figuring out how to improve as a human being. And so figuring out what they did wrong on the calls, figuring out what they can improve on, what personal areas of life you have to improve on. And it seems, at least it seemed to me like journaling didn't play that big of an impact because it seems like such a trivial thing to journal, but it's huge. Like it's huge. Like how are you supposed to conquer your ego if you don't like think it through, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. Also planning my day for the next day. It's like programming yourself for the morning. If I plan exactly what I'm going to do tonight, then tomorrow morning I'll just have it already in my head and I'm just going to execute it. Like last night was when I thought of doing this video. If I had thought about it today, I probably wouldn't do it until the next day if I journaled it in and planned it. So that's a huge part too. And so I selected like a whole hour to just journal because I had had it for 20 minutes before, but for some reason 20 minutes wasn't motivational enough or like 20 minutes it didn't give it enough value when I said just 20 minutes of journaling, but when I gave journaling an hour, it told myself like, "Oh, an hour of my day needs to go to journaling. That must be a pretty important thing that I'm doing. Like the gym, that's an hour. Okay, yeah, I better journal." And so it's been really good. Also, another thing that I've learned too is the value of sleep. So I used to sleep 6 hours ish, and to be honest, sometimes it's a battle in my head because I hear these successful people talking about how they just didn't sleep. And I think there is time and place for that. Like this last week, I didn't have any calls, and so I didn't go to sleep at exactly the right time because I had other things like I wanted to like figure things out and like do stuff. So I did, and but I just woke up a little bit later or didn't get as good of sleep as I should have. But I also felt the impacts of that. I was like, like I don't feel as sharp as I normally would be. And it's crazy how impactful a good sleep schedule can be. Like crazy. Like my mind can just be clear all the way into the evening, which before it would only be clear for the first 4 hours and then I was like brain dead. Like sleep has a huge part to play. Massive. So, yeah, there's a lot that I've learned and I'm excited for the upcoming things that I get to learn and the kind of person that I get to become. And I hope that whoever's watching this, I hope that it helps, and I hope that somehow I can help you, um, in one way, shape, or form. Um, Other than that, I think I have reached the end of my rant for today, and yeah, I hope this can help some other DM setter on their journey to closing or whatever your big goal is. So let's go.